She checked her bank account 6 times that day. Not because she was broke, because she was afraid to stop moving. The strange part? She was doing well. She had a good job. She lived in a high-rise apartment in Chicago. She traveled twice a year. She could afford nice restaurants, nice clothes, and the occasional luxury purchase. But every time she relaxed, guilt showed up. Every time she spent money, anxiety showed up. And every time she reached a financial goal, she moved the goalpost. Like somehow enough was always one more promotion away, one more raise away, one more savings milestone away. A falcon can see prey from miles away. It survives because it never stops scanning. But when your brain works like that with money, you can build a good life and still never feel safe inside it. Before we go further, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And if you are new here, hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Maya. She was 34 years old, a senior marketing analyst, living in downtown Chicago. On paper, Maya looked successful. She made more money than she ever imagined she would make in her 20s. But almost nobody knew how much pressure she lived under. Every month, even after paying her bills, she would open her bank app over and over again. Morning, lunch break, late at night. Not because anything had changed, because checking made her feel like she was doing something. That is the strange thing about high performers. A lot of them are not addicted to money. They are addicted to the feeling of staying ahead. And those are not the same thing. Money gives you options, but staying ahead feels like survival. Maya did not realize it, but her brain was not chasing wealth anymore. It was chasing relief. Every time she checked her account, moved money around, updated a spreadsheet, or adjusted a budget category, she got a tiny dopamine release. Not because she was making real progress, because for a few seconds, it felt like control. And once your brain starts connecting control to safety, it becomes very hard to stop. Here is what is strange. The more stable Maya became financially, the less stable she felt emotionally. Because now she had something to lose. A nicer apartment, a better car, more responsibility, more expectations. And with every new level of success came a new level of fear. Fear of falling behind. Fear of losing momentum. Fear of becoming the version of herself she worked so hard to escape. This is where it breaks down. Most people think high performers are driven by confidence. A lot of the time, they are driven by fear. Fear disguised as ambition. Fear disguised as discipline. Fear disguised as productivity. Maya was not building her life. She was protecting herself from losing it. And that pattern usually starts much earlier than people think. Maya grew up in a house where money problems were never far away. Her parents worked hard, but there was always stress. The lights were turned off quickly. Groceries were stretched. Conversations about money always sounded tense. Not right now. We cannot afford that. Maybe next month. When she was a kid, Maya learned something without realizing it. Money was not peace. Money was protection. Money was what stood between your family and embarrassment, between stability and chaos, between feeling safe and feeling exposed. So even after her income changed, her nervous system did not. Part of her still believed that if she stopped watching everything closely, something bad would happen. You did not forget to enjoy your life. You postponed it again. That promotion, that vacation, that new apartment, that extra savings goal. You tell yourself you will relax when you finally get there. But there keeps moving. At first glance, this looks normal. It is not. Because the goal is no longer financial freedom. The goal becomes emotional permission. Permission to breathe. Permission to spend. Permission to slow down. Permission to feel like you are enough. And this is the part nobody notices. The people who look the most in control are often the people who feel the least safe inside. One night, Maya was sitting alone in her apartment. Laptop open. Bank app open. 3 tabs comparing savings accounts. A spreadsheet tracking monthly spending. And still, she felt behind. Bills were paid. Money was there. But she still scrolled. Then she looked out the window. Across the street, another apartment tower. Hundreds of windows. Hundreds of people. And for the first time in a long time, she asked herself something strange. What exactly am I trying to outrun? That was the turning point. Not because she suddenly changed, because she finally saw the pattern. A falcon can spot movement from incredible distances. That is what makes it such an effective hunter. But because it is always scanning the horizon, it almost never experiences stillness. That was Maya. She had trained herself to see every future problem before it happened. Every bill, every delay, every missed opportunity, every possible setback. But she had lost the ability to see what was already enough. This is not about money. It is about patterns. How many times have you told yourself that life will finally feel easier after the next goal, and then you reach it, only to create another one? Because if that sounds familiar, you are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not bad with money. You may have simply trained yourself to believe that constant pressure is the same thing as progress. Maya eventually realized she had been running her entire financial life through what we can call the Falcon Filter. The Falcon Filter has 4 stages. Stage 1, scan. You constantly look for danger, risk, loss, and missed opportunities. Stage 2, secure. You save more. You plan more. You organize more. You check more. Stage 3, shift. Every time you make progress, you move the goalpost. The amount that used to feel life-changing suddenly feels ordinary. And then comes stage 4, starve. You starve yourself of rest. You starve yourself of satisfaction. You starve yourself of joy. Because deep down, you believe slowing down is dangerous. That framework explained almost everything Maya had been doing. She was not financially irresponsible. She was emotionally trapped inside survival mode. And survival mode is difficult because it feels productive. It looks responsible. People praise you for it. They call you disciplined, driven, focused. But sometimes the most dangerous patterns are the ones that get rewarded. Every month feels like a reset. Nothing changes. That is the exhausting part. You can earn more, save more, work more, achieve more, and still carry the exact same fear. Because fear does not disappear when your bank account changes. It disappears when your internal story changes. The truth is, some people are not bad at enjoying life. They are just so used to preparing for disaster that peace starts to feel irresponsible. That is why some people can sit in first class and still feel anxious. Why some people can have 6 months of savings and still panic. Why some people can be more financially secure than ever and still feel like one mistake will ruin everything. Your brain does not always build what matters. It builds what feels like protection. And sometimes, protection becomes a prison. A falcon survives because it can see danger before it arrives. But human beings are different. You cannot spend your entire life scanning the horizon. At some point, you have to let yourself land. If this felt personal, you are not alone. A lot of people are carrying financial patterns they never chose consciously. Patterns built in childhood. Patterns built through stress. Patterns built through fear. But once you can see the pattern, you can finally stop living inside it. And maybe that is the real goal. Not more money. Not more hustle. Not more pressure. Just finally feeling safe enough to enjoy what you already built. If you saw yourself in this story, let us know in the comments. Because sometimes hearing that other people feel the same way is the first step toward realizing you are not the only one. The truth is, Maya was not the only person living like this. A few weeks later, she met one of her old college friends for dinner. Her friend was a nurse. Different career, different lifestyle, different income. But halfway through the conversation, the same pattern showed up. Her friend admitted she had not taken a real vacation in 4 years. Not because she could not afford it. Because every time she was about to book one, she convinced herself something more important would come up. A future bill, a future emergency, a future problem. Then another friend joined the conversation. He worked in tech. He admitted he had been saving aggressively for years. But every time his savings increased, he increased the number he believed he needed. First it was $10,000, then 20, then 50, then 100. No number ever created peace. It only created a temporary pause before the next target appeared. And suddenly Maya realized something. A lot of people are not chasing wealth. They are chasing the feeling that they will finally be allowed to relax. But that feeling never comes if your brain has been trained to expect danger. Because when fear becomes familiar, peace can start to feel suspicious. That is why some people sabotage rest. They cannot sit still without feeling guilty. They cannot enjoy free time without feeling lazy. They cannot spend money on themselves without feeling irresponsible. And this pattern shows up everywhere. At the grocery store, you compare prices even when you can afford the better option. At restaurants, you hesitate before ordering what you actually want. At the airport, you feel guilty for buying coffee even though you spent thousands on the trip. At home, you save expensive clothes for a special occasion that never comes. You wait to use nice candles, nice plates, nice perfume, because part of you still believes enjoyment has to be earned. That is the hidden cost of survival mode. You stop living in the present. You start living for some future version of yourself that finally deserves peace. But that future version keeps moving further away. And the more you delay feeling satisfied, the harder satisfaction becomes. Because your brain adapts. The raise becomes normal. The nicer apartment becomes normal. The upgraded car becomes normal. The extra money becomes normal. This is called hedonic adaptation. Human beings get used to improvement very quickly, which means external success can only carry you for so long. After that, your internal patterns take over again. That is why two people can make the exact same amount of money and feel completely different. One person feels grateful. The other person feels behind. One person feels safe. The other person feels pressure. One person sees abundance. The other person sees risk. Because money does not just live in your bank account. It lives in your nervous system. It lives in your habits. It lives in the stories you repeat without noticing. Maya slowly started changing the way she approached money. Not by earning more. Not by creating another budget. Not by setting another goal. But by asking different questions. Instead of asking, "What else do I need?" she started asking, "What am I afraid will happen if I stop?" That question changed everything. Because most people are not afraid of having less money. They are afraid of what less money represents. Embarrassment, judgment, dependence, losing status, losing control. And once you understand the real fear underneath the behavior itself starts making sense. This is where most people get stuck. They think the answer is better discipline. But more discipline is not always the answer. Sometimes the answer is feeling safe enough to stop treating every decision like a threat. Sometimes the answer is letting yourself enjoy the life you already built. Sometimes the answer is admitting that your nervous system is still living in a season your life has already outgrown. That is one of the hardest things for high performers to accept. Because if pressure helped you survive, you start believing pressure is the reason for all of your success. You become afraid that if you stop being hard on yourself, everything will fall apart. But that is rarely true. You can still be ambitious without living in fear. You can still care about money without obsessing over it. You can still plan for the future without sacrificing the present. That balance is difficult, especially in a world where everybody seems to be performing success online. Someone always has a better house, a better car, a better vacation, a better job title. And if you are constantly exposed to other people's highlight reels, your own life can start feeling smaller than it really is. This is why comparison is one of the fastest ways to destroy financial peace. Because comparison changes the standard. What used to feel exciting suddenly feels average. What used to feel like progress suddenly feels behind. And what used to feel like enough suddenly feels embarrassing. That is why so many people reach goals they once dreamed about and feel almost nothing. Because they never stopped long enough to let themselves feel it. They reached the mountain and immediately looked for the next one. That is the Falcon mindset. Always scanning, always searching, always preparing, never landing. But eventually, if you never let yourself land, you stop remembering what you were building all of this for in the first place. Maybe the real flex is not making more money. Maybe the real flex is being able to enjoy your life without feeling guilty about it. Maybe the real flex is buying something nice without needing to justify it. Maybe the real flex is having peace in a world that constantly tells you to panic. Because there will always be another goal, another milestone, another target, another level. But if you do not learn how to feel safe now, you will carry the same pressure into every future version of your life. And eventually, you will realize you were never chasing money at all. You were chasing permission. Permission to breathe. Permission to slow down. Permission to believe you have already done enough. And that permission does not come from your bank account. It comes from changing the story you tell yourself about what money means. If this felt personal, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have ever felt like you could never fully relax no matter how much progress you made, let us know in the comments. Because the more honest people become about these patterns, the easier it becomes to stop confusing survival mode with success.